Today, ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk about the recession you didn't know was happening here in Canada and I believe in the US as well. And this is some fascinating, interesting stuff in financial times we live in. So let's jump right into it. Welcome back, passive income investors. This evening, I want to discuss something not a lot of people talk about, but we hear about it a lot, and it's starting to seem like this echo in the background of a recession, the next Great Depression, all the things wrong with the world that, yes, a lot of them are true, which I'm going to address really quickly, but I want to talk about the situation we are currently in and why I find it so bloody interesting, because this kind of situation couldn't even exist 15 or 20 years ago. But looking at the S&P and the TSX composite, which make up basically the US and what the Canadian economy look like is going on, we can see that from the highest point, which was right around the beginning of 2018, if I get the little marker over that, and we go all the way to today, you haven't actually made any money. The S&P has been flat. Now the TSX, on the other hand, has been a lot worse because it didn't hit all-time highs until recently, but over the long 5-year term here, we're up 12% overall. Not very good, but I think we're in something like a stagflation, guys. This is so weird to me, but I was talking to my girlfriend about this the other day, how capitalism is so great because essentially it's allowed anything to be possible, whereas 15-20 years ago you had to be fairly wealthy to travel far, to basically buy anything nice, drive around in nice cars. Well, today you can rent, you can lease, and you can do whatever you want, and it seems more affordable than ever. And it's also leading us to the most debt that we've ever had, including in student loans. Now, many of us are aware, I'm sure well aware, of the national debt in the US, the Canadian federal national debt. Everyone owes like a certain amount. It's kind of ridiculous, and it just keeps going up and up and up. And we also know that half of all people, and currently it's half of all Canadians, are living a paycheck to paycheck, which is another fascinating thing to understand. Now, when you kind of jumble all of this together, a lot of people are worried about what is going on. How can the stock market stay up at these levels when people don't have any money? How is all of this going on? It seems fake. Well, like I said, it has everything to do with leasing, financing, and doing things of that nature, because essentially what that allows us to do is, instead of seeing a car that costs 40 or 50 grand, we only see a $500 or $600 a month car payment we feel like we can afford, or those new shoes, those nice new Yeezys you can finance for $20 a month at like a 2 or 3 year term. Even an iPhone. We can finance our iPhones today, guys. We finance our education. We finance pretty much everything we do in life. Now, when that becomes a thing, these companies seem to be able to keep bringing out numbers that are stagflating themselves, but they make it look good by doing what is called share buybacks. Now, on top of that, you want to throw in an entire housing market that's been correcting slightly, also putting some fear into people. But as we can see, as summer comes back, house sales are picking up, which is probably going to level off housing crashing in the city of Toronto, which has put a lot of fear into people about the banks, which I made a video about just before this one, actually. And you're probably thinking about, what am I leading here to, guys? Well, I'm leading to the idea of what kind of debt do you have? And I want to make you think a little bit different about debt by being something almost a little bit childish here in my writing, because I'm trying to use a mouse. It's hard to write with a mouse, but I want to talk about two different kind of debts and why this is basically the next recession we are already in, or stagflation as I'm going to call it, until the economy can catch back up. This has a lot to do with basically people learning how to nurse every dime out of people's lives by putting a chain ball on them and making them work on payments instead of being able to afford something they could buy. Which, again, if you go back a decade, guys, there's just so many things you couldn't just have easily done that you can do today. Just fake. Like, I have fun in my life within reason. It's just blowing my mind at how things can seem so affordable if you're just smart about it. But a lot of us will go out and we just want that instant gratification. But when we talk about good and bad debt, guys, bad debt, in my opinion, and you can argue this all you want, but I'm going to say things that are high risk. Now, I've talked about high risk things in the past, but today I specifically want to talk about the way we adjust to risk. Now, when you walk out of your house and you walk across the street and you see the street light is red and you're able to cross, the cross thing goes to walk and you go to walk and you just presume everyone's going to stop. There's still risk to that, because there could be a guy that's drunk, runs the stop and hits you unfortunately because you weren't paying attention. That is risk. Now, when it comes to any kind of investing, especially with debt, there's just always risk, and some of it is literally as risky as crossing the street, in my opinion. But some of it can be as risky as basically financing what could be the next decade of your life. If I'm spelling this right while I'm trying to talk, as a student loan, guys. I would put this in high risk, okay? If you can't afford your education, well, maybe because you're too young, you haven't actually worked long enough to understand what the working world is like, and maybe you don't even know what you want to do because you're still 18. Student loans, highest risk thing you can do because it can rip a decade away from you, and it was something I'm glad I didn't do. Even though I took out a loan, I learned very fast how hard it is to pay those back. Now, those Yeezys, I'm going to butcher my spelling of Yee with Z's, but we all know you don't want to finance your Yeezys or your iPhone. Why? Because, and same with your car, all of this is just stupid. Stupid. You're probably saying, well, why is that dumb? This is, well, one second, I'm going to put in my Yeezys and my iPhones. The reason this is dumb is because all of these assets become worth less and less and less over time. And the only way you can pay it back by most of 50% of the entire population is by working it off, guys, which is a horrible way to think. Now, if you want to buy an iPhone, let me tell you how you buy an iPhone. You work your ass off. You save up $10,000, $15,000. You live off the junkiest iPhone or whatever you can afford at the time. And then when you get that money invested, you'll notice that Apple will actually make you enough to afford their own products. And if you want to buy it, get rid of this, because just take a little bit of profit and go and buy an iPhone because their company's going to pay for it. Most of us think in the aspect of, I want it right now, so I'm going to take a phone plan that's $40 or $50 a month, raise it to $90 or $100, and be like, oh, well, it's only $40 a month. Yeah, but you're still paying for the bloody phone, and you're just spreading your slavery out over a period of time, in my opinion. Anyways, you don't have to take my opinion. But let's go back to our little chart, guys. If you stick along, don't worry, by the end of this I am going to bring this to a point, and remember to slap a like and consider subscribing, because I guarantee you a lot of people don't have this perspective on things. But moving into good debt, what would the definition of good debt be? Because most people are like Dave Ramsey, like, no debt, all debt's bad, buy a house with cash, afford what you're buying. Yes, whatever. Like I said, some debt, in my opinion, is risky as crossing the street. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's start with how we do a risk assessment. The reason these are bad risk assessments is because these things will never be worth more than you pay for them, and they will only become worth less over time, which means you'll end up having to pay all of this debt back in one form or another. Now, let's talk about the good debt. So, I'm sure we know what good debt is owning a home. Not really owning a home, renting a home, guys. You need to be renting a home out. So basically, we're getting some cash flow off some debt, which I'm sure many of us know. But let's talk about another form of debt. Now, many of you that are subscribed to this channel know what I'm talking about. To those new people, if you rent a property, and you can go watch Grant Cardone or Graham Stephan about real estate. There's so many channels about real estate. You'll understand that when you take out a loan, essentially you're being able to leverage it into a multi-million-dollar or, $500,000 or $200,000 mortgage that you're going to have control over. Then you're going to rent it out, and it's going to make you just enough money to not only pay the mortgage and the debts, you're also going to be able to make 5 or 10% on your initial down payment, and you're going to be managing a $200,000 or $300,000, whatever it costs, property. Sounds like good debt to me because you make more money and you can pay the loans back over time. Another way you can do this kind of debt is by basically taking out say you already own a home, whatever. Maybe you want to take out a line of credit. You have some money saved up, you have some assets, you take out a line of credit, and you're going to mortgage this out to people like a loan shark. But there's a safe way to do this with second mortgages. Some people the banks don't trust because they've had issues in the past, but you can vet these people and give them what is called a second mortgage at, say, a 12% rate, which sounds crazy, but trust me, this is quite brilliant in my opinion, because on a second mortgage at 12%, if you can get a line of credit, this is a horrible spelling of mortgage, guys, and it's not even going to fit. Don't worry about it. You get what I'm talking about. But a second mortgage, so you get a 12%, and you say you're getting your loan, or you get $100,000 from the bank. Maybe you're putting a mortgage out on your house because you have some equity in it, whatever. You end up with $100,000, and you're paying a 4.5% or 5% on it, and you're leveraging it out to somebody at 12%. Well, there you go. Boom. You're making, a 7-8% return on capital by mortgaging it out to a guy on a second mortgage. And the reason this is safe debt and in my opinion, almost just as risky as crossing the street, is because if this guy defaults and does not pay his property tax or something happens, when the house gets sold, you actually will end up getting some of your money back to pay that loan. So you don't end up on the street. Whereas with any of these, if these break, which you're probably going to have them insured in some way, like your iPhone and your Yeezys, you might buy the warranty with these guys, which you're going to be paying extra for. But these guys, these stupid investments, if you lose them, break them, or whatever, they just cost you more and more money. Now, a car, on the other hand, could be a good investment. If you need a car for work, you finance it into what the monthly costs are going to be, and you will charge it to your clients, which is what I do. And a car can be a good investment. There's nothing saying a car could be a bad investment, even though it bleeds capital if you absolutely need it. Now, back to good high risk debt would be putting it into one of those companies online where you can send your money out to like 100 different people and give them loans for their crazy ideas, because if they default, you really don't get any of your money back. So this is what I'm going to call just being a direct loan shark. Like you're physically using some middleman company, like loan lender, whatever you're using to lend money out to people's crazy ideas so they can fix their houses up, do whatever they're doing. These loan lending companies, guys, are very fishy, because if things don't work out over the long term, you end up losing all of your money, which makes this, in my opinion, though good debt, because you can make money, and a lot of people are making money doing this. It's still a super high risk, but it still goes in the good debt pile, because over the long term, if you do it right, you can make more money than it's costing you. So these are ideas, in my opinion, of good debt. You could also do this if you're investing into a business that you already know is making money. So you put the hard work in, and now you want to expand, and you know you can get the sales because you've proven that you can get sales, and if you could just scale it a little more, you might be able to do better. That would also be good turnabout. Self-investing is maybe the highest return you can ever get, because when you're investing in your own business, you can make an infinite rate of return if you know what you're doing. But this takes a lot of skill, years of practice, and understanding your business in and out. But these are the definitions of good and bad debt. Now, the reason I'm telling you all of this crazy stuff, guys, is because you're probably either one of those people that hate debt or love debt. But the fact of the matter is, debt is what is making up this recession I believe we're in. And it's because of this here. My generation, I'm part of the millennials, has been brought up to believe in taking out student loans and buying everything on a payment plan. Literally, it seems to be the millennial, take the credit card out on your trips, on whatever you're doing, like explore. You don't need to be rich until you're in your 30s. And if you're in your 20s, do whatever you can to live in this side. Because by the time you're in your 30s and 40s, you'll be retired, while these guys see you living the high life after you lived in your parents' basement forever. These guys over here are like, oh, well, I already had a house and everything, but you're going on all these trips and you're doing all this stuff with your family, and we're stuck in our house just working our asses off to make up for all of this stuff we bought. It's a very different lifestyle, but this is the lifestyle we've been taught to live over here, and this is what I really believe is putting us into this really weird bubble that is going on that a lot of people think are going to burst, but I honestly don't think it is. I don't think this is going to burst anytime soon. I think what could happen is we see the stock market continue to head sideways for a while, and they might even keep going up because companies are just doing share buybacks. They get their cash flow from these people that are working their asses off to basically afford the stuff that's making this stock market so propped up. And on top of that, we have more and more money being printed, and we're seeing, again, the Federal Reserve pull back on raising interest rates. Housing's been cooling a bit, but everything is just in this weird balance. And I call it the beauty zone, because in this zone, this is the way the markets always seem to operate, and actually life in general seems to operate in this weird, uncomfortable balance. But it's the way I think it should be, and I love seeing what's going on because, again, the markets today were nothing like yesterday. The past usually rhymes. It doesn't repeat, it rhymes, and to try and predict the future is impossible. I just buy good companies, invest my ass off into businesses in the real world and in the stock market to show you guys my financial freedom journey. And I figured I'd make this video just to kind of give some reality to what we're doing here, because there is always risk. But again, I wouldn't take debt out to buy stocks. Stocks, you can see, when you take out debt, guys, to buy stocks, you could end up in a situation like my Tesla shares are down huge. Even my CM right now is doing pretty bad. And you can get margin calls. You want to put it into the things that have the highest rate of not defaulting, and that's where you're going to get into safe debt, which you can absolutely do through real estate and many other investments. But this is interesting, and I hope most of you that are on this channel are on the good debt side of things. And if you're on the bad side of debt, I do recommend watching Dave Ramsey and learn how to live frugally, guys. Sometimes if you can sacrifice yourself for 3, 5, 10 years the payout in the long term could be exponential, and you could do more good for the planet than anyone could ever imagine if you're just patient, work hard, and live a good life, guys. Again, balance, all about that balance. I hope you enjoyed this quick video, something a little different for you. Stay cool, stay awesome, guys. I look forward to chatting to you tomorrow.